Hey guys, welcome to this week's episode. I just want to give you a little teaser about what's going to be covered. We are going to talk about a big bone broth brand, and Lorenzo is going to talk about his favorite topic, which is around how to optimize subscriptions. But he's going to talk about things that he's going to talk about at least three things you've never heard anyone else talk about with subscriptions. So stick around for his section. It's the second part of the show. It's actually the first part of the show. And I am going to talk about, I'm not just going to talk about how to construct the sales pitch for first time buyers. I'm actually going to give you the template for it so you can directly apply it to your own websites. Stick around, enjoy the show.
Ciao.
Hey guys, welcome to yet another episode. And keeping the tradition alive, we're trying to pick different product categories where the psychology of the buyer is completely different as well, because we want to demonstrate to you that this process that we are talking about with reviews mining, this process we're talking about constructing sales copy, it applies across the board. And for those of you who are discovering us for the very first time, welcome to the channel. We have lots of other brands that we've covered, all of which can be found in our channel archive. And we try and address things in very different and unique ways. So some of the ideas we're discussing in this episode are different. I mean, are completely different to what we've done in previous episodes. Yeah. So if you want to kind of get a feel for our entire process, we will eventually come up with special playlists where we talk about specific, the entire process. But for now, watch some of those older episodes. This is going to be a 30-minute episode, so we're going to just quickly jump into it. But what I want to do first is I want to actually talk about the brand that we've picked. It's a highly successful, Lorenzo, I believe it's a Canadian company, but I could be wrong.
I'm not sure. I actually think it's from San Francisco.
Okay.
But I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. You know, I think Lorenzo might talk about this, but what I can mention to you is that being bone broth is both super traditional, but it's also a newer phenomena. And I think in Lorenzo's research, he found that around 2015, it kind of it started growing in popularity. So it's really it's culturally, it's become very relevant these days. And Kettle and Fire is, I think, one of the dominating players in the space. And it's very clear to us that they have a very strong understanding about the marketing aspect of the product. And again, our purpose is this is not a teardown. I'm going to in fact even talk about some of the incredible things that they've done. There's a lot of things they've done that are incredible. Our only purpose is, if we had the unique privilege to work with Kettle and Fire, how would we think about the puzzle? Because we think there's always room for new, interesting ideas. So I'm going to get started with their mobile page. The first thing that is worth mentioning, you've seen this in previous episodes, so you've seen different examples. This is the first retailer where the visual merchandising that I've seen is just incredible. It's totally incredible. It's not super complicated. I just think it's really beautiful. So I thought it really stood out.
Finally, somebody that shows the food in the first image of the product, right?
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Yeah. And then you come here and then they kind of have this full screen. When you click on the alternate images, they show a full screen, which I really like personally, because the user has already kind of raised their hand up and said, I want to, I'm interested in this. And then you can kind of scroll through them. This emulator is not perfect. These lifestyle images are good. I'm sure they have other assets that we could explore, but this is good. I think they've done a good job. Then of course they have 79,000 reviews. No, 7,900, which is still a lot. Yeah. And then there's a headline. There's some copy over here: smooth and savory sips made from grass-fed beef with the slightest hint of herbs, perfect for staying satiated between meals. Short to the point copy. As a copywriter, I have a distinction in my approach to how copy should be written, but this is fine. This is what most brands do. And then they immediately have the subscription option. Something very interesting here, which I think is clever compared to other brands, is that they don't just have subscribe and save, right? They actually show some of the benefits that they're showing with their subscription plan. I think there's lots of room for improvement over here, but the point is that it seems fairly sophisticated. This is Lorenzo's area of expertise, and he's going to talk more about it. But just to show you the functionality, they allow you to select the frequency, which is useful. And Lorenzo is going to add some really interesting commentary around how that can be made even better. And then they have, of course, the one-time order purchase, which would be attractive to someone like me who's never tried the product. And then they allow you to select the quantity. So again, price point next to the add to cart. If you're taking a 6-pack, it's $48. Then they have these little graphical elements to show, it's gluten-free, paleo-friendly, showing the nutritional facts up front. Then there's also this view ingredients option, so you can see what's specifically in the bone broth. And there's also this image gallery of people enjoying it in the morning, enjoying it during the breakfast time. It's a pick me up in the afternoon. So they have like these lifestyle images that kind of reflect that idea, which is good, which is useful. Then go ahead. You were saying something.
No. This to me, this is my hypothesis that these guys know what they're doing, and I think that around how different people consume their product differently for different purposes.
Yeah.
And because they have somebody tries in the morning, somebody even tries in the middle of the morning, and then right. So to me, this shows that these guys know what they're doing.
That's really true. What's really curious also is that, like, so this is how, as a CRO, we're kind of like detectives, and we're trying to reverse engineer stuff. If you notice something, you notice all these images, at least as I can guess, they look like females to me, which tells me probably there's a skew towards female audience, which is interesting because their copy doesn't really play to that idea. So maybe that's a good idea, maybe it's not. But I just wanted to mention this point because we should always kind of be working backwards to understand the makeup of their audience, because the recommendations we give should reflect that makeup. Then they have these reviews, a short listing of reviews versus, of course, the fact that they have 8,000 reviews lower on the page. I would have here mentioned to the reader again that we also have 8,000 more reviews. But and then, of course, again, a lifestyle image. I do like these lifestyle images. They're quite nice. They don't, of course, this could be a coffee shot as well, of course, but that's a whole different point.
Yeah.
And then they kind of talk about, this is the bulk of their sales pitch is over here. And it's saying, it's maybe talking about the fact that because traditionally people have used or associated this with cooking food, and they're saying that it's not just for cooking food. And then they talk about some of the bullet points, and then they have the reviews, and that's it. So that's the layout of the page, fairly straightforward. I'm going to now hand this over to Lorenzo, and he's going to actually talk about his insight, which I'm excited to hear.
Yeah. Thank you, Rishi. So if you scroll, yeah, perfect. So let's talk about the two type of options in terms of product selection that these guys have, right? So as a default option, the user lands on the page, and the default option is the one-time order. And then as an alternative, they also can buy the product in a subscription. Now, my hypothesis here is that these guys are putting a lot of emphasis around the subscription. And I'm going to tell you why. Well, first of all, this is a consumable product, so it kind of makes sense to wanting to push that. Second, if you go in the burger menu, they actually have a subscribe and save page where the user basically, it's like a category page where the user can select all the products that are sold on a subscription.
Yep.
So this tells me again, it's another kind of like clue that tells me that subscription is important to them if they have built an entire page around that. So one thing that I also noticed, as you said earlier, Rishi, if you click on subscribe and save, I want to talk about that part. So if you think about the user, right? The user now is in front of a decision to make. Should I buy the product on a one-time, or should I buy the product on a subscription? And what these guys are doing is actually interesting, because they're saying, okay, when the user selects subscription, first of all, I'll tell you 3 things that we only offer to subscribers that one-time order people don't get. And it's save up to 20%. So this is actually very common and classic for a lot of brands that sell product on a subscription and one time, offer a discount because they want to push that option more. Then they have free shipping for US orders for 10 cartons plus. Then they have early access to new products. This plays a little bit of an exclusivity, bias and psychology factor, which is interesting. And then they have the last kind of like a raw line here, which I thought it was very interesting, is minimum 2 shipments required. And when I first saw it, I'm like, I know why these guys are doing this. And my hypothesis is that they're doing it because they probably looked at their data. Again, this to me shows that these guys know what they're doing. They probably looked at the data and they noticed that a lot of people buy the product in a subscription and then cancel right away because they want to take advantage of the discount pricing and game the system, right? But then when I saw that, my second trigger was, I wonder how many people actually see that kind of like minimum requirement line and cancel, and they realize, oh my God, now I'm getting the second order, right? Like they probably didn't know that they just paid for 2 orders basically. So one thing that I would do here, I would go straight into kind of like research mode, because there's few things that I would want to understand. First of all, I would want to understand if the benefits that they give to the subscription users, are enough to actually convince the user to pick the subscription versus one time. And I wonder if by doing research, and I'll tell you what I would do in kind of like in an actionable way, I wonder if offering more benefits or other benefits would actually improve the number, the percentage of people that pick subscription versus one time. So what I would do is I would actually run a post-purchase survey to understand what people are trying to accomplish with buying a bone broth. I don't know enough about it, so I don't have strong hypothesis, because to me, it's going to be interesting to understand that. And based on that, I can come up with like different benefits that they can offer, that Kettle on Fire can offer to different people, even like segment. I don't want to get too complicated, but they could even segment the benefits to offer based on what they're trying to achieve. And they could come up with some benefits that are low cost for the company and high perceived value for the customer based on the job that they're trying to get done. The other thing that I wanted to comment on is the frequency drop down here. So if you see just below the subscribe and save, they have obviously the ability to decide how often the product should be delivered. So 30, 60, or 90 days. And when I first saw it, I was like, okay, they're not. This is actually a very, very common, I would say, mistake across a lot of different businesses and DTC brands. They're not really helping Rishi, the customer, the potential customer, decide how frequently to buy the product. Now Rishi is in front of another decision to make, right? Should I pick the 30 Should I pick the 60? Should I pick the 90? And Rishi doesn't really have any benchmark to use in order to make that decision of what frequency to use, right? I've seen some companies doing like recommended, using that. Have you seen that? Like using the recommended parentheses in terms of subscription. But there's no such a thing as one recommendation, because everybody has their own, way of consuming a product like this, right?
Right.
So the way I would try to tackle this puzzle, as you love to call it, Rishi, is actually with a little widget. I don't know if you've seen the dog food calculator examples where you give a bunch of inputs about your dog, and the website tells you how much food to give to the dog. So that's the example.
I want to just actually add something here as well. What I really love about this calculator idea, I don't know what the specific details are, but to me, one of the things that I'm looking for as a marketer is I'm looking for signals of intent. And so what happens is now I have another segment of data I can look at, because I can say how many people use the calculator but didn't purchase. And that shows me that where the friction is, right? And so, anyway, go on.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say that the importance of so it's like the example of the dog food calculator, where the user responds to a bunch of questions about the feeding habit of their dog, and the website gives recommendation around quantity of dog food or frequency of purchase. I will actually put in the show notes and in the comment, not in the comment, in the show notes, I'll put a link to have an example of how a company that sells supplement for horses uses that calculator, because it's very, very interesting. But my point here is I want to help the user select the right frequency of delivery, because I want to avoid a very, 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 very common issue that a lot of different subscription-based DTC that I've worked with have, which is they end up with too many quantities of the product at their house, because they either haven't kind of consumed the product, or they have bought the product with the wrong frequency. Okay. Now, in case creating this sort of like help me choose the right frequency requires a little bit too much of development work, I actually have an example of a company that does it in a compelling way, which is DollarShaveClub. What they have here, if you want to zoom in a little bit, Rishi, into the screenshot. Yeah, so what these, a little bit more, fantastic. What these guys have here is, again, they have like the 3 different frequency of delivery, 2 months, 3 months, and 4 months. And then they basically use copy to recommend the frequency based on how frequently people shave, right? So if people shave 5 or more days a week, they should be ordering the product every 2 months, and so on, right? So again, if you work for a subscription-based e-commerce and you can't convince your developers to build this widget, or it might take a little bit too much time, I'm giving you an example of a company that found a way to still help people select the right frequency of purchase simply with adding 1 line of copy, which is probably like 20 minutes of work, which can help the user and might help you as well reduce the number of people that cancel the subscription because they haven't ended up with too many quantities of the product. Yeah, so that's pretty much my main idea. I would love for you to talk about yours, and then I'll talk about few other stuff.
Awesome. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, really good idea. And let's now jump to, I'm gonna have to reduce this a little bit. I'm gonna jump to my idea, and basically my whole kind of thinking and hypothesis is that buying beef bone broth is a lifestyle choice. It's not something you just say, I'm just gonna, it's not like ice cream flavor, right? And so what that means is that there is a big difference between someone who understands what this lifestyle is about and someone who is new to the lifestyle. And if I had a retail store and if I was selling bone broth and a customer walked in and that customer had been having beef broth for many years, but have just never bought my brand, I would tell them a very different sales pitch versus someone who walked in and through just my conversation, they were like, I've been hearing about it in the news, never, and I'm looking to be healthy. I'm looking for something to kind of feel healthy. I even have some friends that have done it, but I've never tasted beef broth. And I would tell them a very different story. And one of the things that I think is a missed opportunity on product pages is we are focused on efficiency. So we're saying, how do we write copy that talks to all audiences? And I don't think we have to make that compromise. I think we can personalize the sales pitch for different audiences. So what I've done is, and there's a number of things to unpack in this concept. So you'll notice that it looks exactly the same as the original page, which it is. There's the same headline, same opening copy. And after that, I'm asking a question: how new are you new to brothing? Now, I don't know if the term brothing is appropriate. That's something the client can pick. But notice the fact that this was not shown. I didn't show this as a pop-up when you land on the page. I didn't show this right at the top of the page because my whole copywriting approach is to emulate what a salesperson would do in a retail store. And if a salesperson just walked up to me and I was in a Best Buy and they said, stop what you're doing, I have 5 questions for you. That's a very weird way. So what they do is they would just engage me in a very casual conversation. And then from there, they will ask questions. That's why it's really important to go ahead.
Based on this, Rishi, one recommendation I have for every single one that is watching our YouTube show is the following. Let's say you're a founder that sells supplements or broth as well, right? Go to the retail store close to your house that also sells the same product that you're selling and spend 1 hour watching how the salespeople of that retail store sell to their customers when somebody goes up to them, even like the questions that they ask, the way they pitch to their customers, because there's always something to learn about that experience.
This is exactly right. No, absolutely right. We're asking, are you new to brothing? Yes and no. And the way what happens is, and this is something worth discussing as well, is that if you click on no, which means you're not new to brothing, then really as a marketer, I want to just get out of the way. I don't think there's anything wrong in the description that they have on the page for someone who's already familiar with it. They already know everything. So I've just simply given a confirmation message saying, hey, got it. Thank you for that input. And then what happens is the rest of the content of the page remains, it's exactly this. There's literally nothing else, like everything else is the same. So it's a totally seamless experience. However, if someone clicks on yes, that means I'm new to brothing, then we show them this copy over here, which says, oh boy, we have so much to share about the magic of broth. And then it's over here, it says explain lower on page. Now I know I have only limited real estate, so I can't put 5 paragraphs worth of content, but I wanted to let the person know that there is more content lower on the page because I already know that they're new to brothing, which means they probably would seek more information. And what happens next is that lower on the page, and I have a...
would you add a link? So explain lower on the page. Would you put an anchor, anchor link that pushes the people?
That's a great idea. That's a great idea. So this is the screenshot of lower on the page, and what I'm trying to figure out is what are the blocks of copy that I have to play with. So there's one over here. There's a review over here, which is a block of copy I can play with. and this is the meat of the copy. This is all that they have on the page. So I want to talk about something that's really important here, because it's a very strategic thing, and it's something that I've struggled with over the years as well. When, of course, as a CRO, you can change the layout of the page. There's no problem with that. There are issues with it. The first one is performance-based issue, which is when you're running a testing tool, because it renders the page after the page loads, there's actually a flicker effect that happens. It actually looks, I actually think it makes the page look worse, because it kind of loads and then it shifts the design based on the new design that you have. But the bigger issue is that whenever you go to clients with a new layout of a page, so, I don't like the fact that this main block is so low on the page. Of course, I wanted higher on the page. The problem is that when I change the layout of the page, it now becomes something that has to get approved by higher levels of the client's team, because now it's their brand that we're working with. And I want to avoid that, because I want to keep the friction minimum. So my suggestion is to always figure out a way to just work within the template that the client has. The client loves this template, by the way. That's why they have it. So just work within the template and try to see how you can use lots of call to actions to show more contextual information. So you can figure out a way to kind of fit that within that template block. So let me show you what I've done. I'm just going to be talking about one idea in this video. And so this is going to be a detailed idea. I should also mention that we actually have many, many other ideas that we would have explored. We are only picking one idea for your purposes, because we don't want this to be a 5-hour show. So don't interpret this as being like I'm saying this is the only idea we're doing. I think this is a good idea, and Lorenzo's idea is a very good idea as well, but there are many other ideas to explore as well. Okay, so how would I treat things differently? So the first block that we have, I would actually do nothing here. I have nothing to add here, but this review over here, now I can start playing with things, because the person has already told me they're new to brothing. So I want to show them a review of someone who's also new to brothing. But not just that, I want to show them a very specific type of review. So I want to show a review of a person who has been thinking about brothing for a long time, but has never really done it before. If I can get that review, I think that's like super powerful. And then the review would say something like, I've never done brothing before. And then I did try it, and then I was just blown away by the benefits. I think that would be a super relevant review for this buyer. They have 8,000 reviews, so I'm pretty confident I can find a review that's similar to this. It doesn't have to be exactly this word language. And then the other idea is that below that, so we have this review over here. Below that, I want to show a link. The review, I want to show a link that says 68 more reviews of first-time triers. And when you click on it, we show a modal where we show reviews of all the other people that have. So I've cherry-picked the reviews. This, of course, is more work, but it's hyper-focused content, and that's what makes it effective. Lorenzo, you want to add anything over here?
Yeah. So actually, what you've done is very, very clever, guys. Like, please, please, please think about what Rishi just has done, right? He's tailoring the reviews based on. I'm not a huge fan of the term I'm about to use, but it's commonly used, so let's use it. It's persona. He's basically focusing on letting the user that is in a particular situation, which is like, oh, I've been thinking about pulling the trigger, but I've never had, right? Now, as soon as you explained this, I had 2 more ideas around that. Now, there's not only one persona, right? Rishi right now just explained how, the potential persona is the person that has been thinking about it, but never pulled the trigger. What I would do is I would actually do research to understand what are the other personas that land on the website. So for example, maybe there's some person that has tried a product in the other products in the past, maybe like 3-4 other brands, they all sucked, right? Now, I would love to see reviews of all those people that have tried other products in the past. Maybe they are particularly picky when it comes to like bone broth, right? And I only want to see those reviews. I always give the classical example of the Italian restaurant, right? You and I spoke about that a few times. I'm Italian. If I go to an Italian restaurant in London, I would love to see reviews only coming from Italian people, because the level of taste that I have towards Italian food is different from anybody else that it doesn't come from Italy. So what Rishi is doing here is absolutely genius.
What I want to also say is that, and this is one of the things that is important to mention, is that I actually got this idea from Lorenzo. We have not published our Casper episode, but by the time probably you watch the video, the episode might be live. But please watch that Casper episode, because in that episode, Lorenzo has applied this exact same idea for that brand. And this is how we learn. I see his ideas and I'm like, oh, this is really interesting. I'm going to use it myself. And this is what we want you guys to do as well, is take our ideas and say, how can we make it even better? Use, and then post a comment and tell us, like, here's the direction I've taken it. So we can all as a community learn together.
Rish and I define it the ping pong game, because, even before the show, we would get on like Zoom calls, him and I just spend like an hour literally like bouncing ideas. So he would say something, he would just share an idea, and I would take the idea to the next level, and then he would take my idea to the next level. It was literally like, a brainstorm of ideas on the top of each other's ideas, right? And we call it ping pong game. So we actually would love for a lot of people to have these kind of conversations, because sharing ideas helps being creative and come up with like even better ideas.
Exactly right. So now, okay, so those are the two blocks that we just spoke about, but now we have this one big block left. And so now this is where I need to fit my sales pitch. And so how would I do it? So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to show you a structure. I'm going to show you the structure that I would use to construct the sales pitch. I have not written the final copy, and that's going to change from situation to situation, but this is the structure. So the first thing I want to start off with is I want to let the user, my first concern as a copywriter is to make sure that the user does not think of my product as a commodity, as a comparable option. So I want to convert apples to apples to oranges, because as long as apples to apples, it's race to the bottom of the pyramid, and I don't want to play that game. So what I've done is I like to use this sentence. You don't have to use it. You can come up with your own version of it. If you come up with a better line, post it in a comment so we can all learn. But the line I'm using is the opening sentence says, beef broths aren't created equal. So this says a couple of things. It instantly in the opening itself says that Kettle and Fire is not the same as 20 other brands that you may have looked at. But it also does something very interesting, because I've left the user hanging. They have to continue reading the description to actually understand how we are different, which is a device that I want to use to get the person to continue reading. So that's the opening. The next thing I want to do is I want to add a sentence that talks about Kettle and Fire, the brand. And the reason for this is that the user is not ready to listen to my sales pitch about the product unless or until I've convinced the buyer that I'm a credible source worth listening to. Mm-hmm. So so we have to sell them on us as experts first. But I only want to show a sentence because I'm very aware of how much limited space I have here. And also skimmers don't want to read a paragraph. Go ahead.
Can you explain the difference between diggers and skimmers?
Yeah. So essentially, if you look at this page, I can tell you for a fact, 1000%, this page was designed for skimmers. Everything is explained in super abbreviated format. In fact, there's not too much content. And the basic idea is that typically 60% of people that are on your website are going to be skimmers. People don't really like to, when I'm shopping, I don't want to read paragraphs worth of content. But the thing is that there is a group of people that are, the kind of person who can go to a hardware store and spend 4 hours in a hardware store. Those people exist as well, and they're valuable customers. And the reason why you need to go after them, which we call the diggers, the reason why you need to go after them is because they are typically underserved. Like if you look at this page right now, and you look at all bone broth product pages, they are designed for skimmers. They're short and to the point. And so the idea is to create content that
Cool.
the genius would be. So the problem is one of the marketer asked the wrong question. They are trying to say, well, we don't want to show tons of content on the page. That's really not the way to think about it, because if that's the alternative, then even I don't want to show that content on the page. What the way to think about it is say that if I got a customer and the customer said, I am the kind of person that wants to read a whole article about what makes bone broth special, do I want to serve this customer or not? If the brand says we don't want to serve this customer, then fine, then you don't care about diggers. But 9 times out of 10, the brand will be like, yes, we want to convert this customer. Well, then you can use lots of devices and mechanisms for this person to interact with something and for that to show them something else that allows them to see that content. So the idea is to show a sentence about kettle and fire, which will satisfy the skimmers. But then right next to that, you add a button that says who we are. And the skimmers are going to ignore this button because they don't care about this. You've already satisfied the itch. But a digger like Lorenzo is going to be wanting to dig deeper. And when you click on it, you show a modal. You can, if it's mobile, you show a full screen modal. And now you have brand new canvas in which you can show them infinite amount of content. You're not overwhelming visitors. When they come to the page, they're not by default seeing a lot of content. So like if you come to this page right now, it's very minimally designed so not to overwhelm the buyer. So we're not violating that rule, that design principle. But if there's a button over here, for example, let's say there's a button over here that says, how to choose, the user is already telling you that I want to learn how to choose. He's not now thinking in terms of like, well, why is there 3 paragraphs worth of content? They don't care about design anymore. They just want the damn answer. And so that's why we've designed this, who we are. The next part of the sales page is to demonstrate expertise. And this is, of course, the bulk of it. So how are we demonstrating expertise? So the way I would do it is I would talk about how we selected we talk about the fact that we put herbs in our broth. How do we select those herbs? What herbs did we decide against? Because that tells me that this person, we've done research. How many taste tests we did before finding the right.
I have a question. Why focusing on explaining what herbs they've gone against versus they've picked? What's the power of that?
So I think I forget the term for it, but there's a term called illusion of labor. And what it tells you is, they've done lots of studies on this, but people place more value on things that are harder to do. And so basically what I'm doing is I'm dramatizing the amount of failed experiments we had so that the person sees more perceived value for what is in front of them.
Thank you. Because I knew there was a very specific reason, because I know you so well. I knew there was a very specific reason why you add that word against. And I wanted that everybody understood it as well.
And I also, I kind of like want to show intentionality. Like, I think part of it is also like, I want the brand to tell me like, we've made these choices, because that is a signal of expertise to me, The second one is, how many taste tests we did before finding the right balance. Again, same idea, just expressed differently. The next thing I want to talk about is the unreasonably high standard we follow when when we are selecting the beef bones, and why that actually matters. Again, just demonstrating expertise. And then finally, talk about the science behind the results, things like the benefits of collagen, improved gut health, etc., etc. And the idea here is that these keywords, now for diggers, just saying the word collagen is not enough. So I would convert that keyword into a hyperlink. And when you click on it, we show a context filled light box that actually explains that in more detail. So that way you've satisfied the skimmers and you've satisfied the diggers. The final thing I'll say over here is that these things that I've identified for demonstrating expertise, they're going to change depending on your price point, depending on the nature of your product, depending on your competitive landscape. So we are just giving examples, and hopefully you can use that. You can personalize these for the brands you're working with. And then the final part of the sales pitch. So
sorry, I have to interrupt you because I want to add one more thing around the demonstration of expertise. One thing that you could also do to demonstrate the demonstration of expertise is actually using like either videos or visuals about each one of these points, right? So for example, let's say that the company has recorded videos has taken photos of their employees or actually other people tasting their product during those tests, right? You could have like a link to like a kind of like a product gallery or simply like a modal that shows the people that tasted the product when they tested it, right? And just to complete the story even further and to make it like 10x more credible, basically.
100%. Starbucks actually does this a lot.
Oh, really?
I've seen, yeah. They show the taste because they have these beans coming in from all over the world and how they select the beans. And it's so powerful because you have these people sitting in lab coats and going, and I'm just, but how is it relevant? Well, it's relevant because it shows me the amount of thought and attention that went into it, right? Ferrari is not just a beautiful car because it's got a sexy look. The amount of detail that they go into is where most of the value is, right? And so, and then the final part of the sales pitch is we are now starting to, the user is getting to the bottom of the sales page. I'm running out of time. So I have to start anticipating some of the questions that they have. And I have to address those questions because I know with statistical certainty that nobody who has important unanswered questions actually buys the product. So some of the questions that they could have, and again, this is me doing, I don't do any user research. I'm just speculating on what kind of questions they could have. One of the questions I had was that, this product has a lot of sodium, at least to me, it sounds like a lot, 330 milligrams of sodium. So the user might say, okay, I'm going to be consuming this multiple times a day. That's a lot of sodium. And so I want to, if that's the question, I want us to have copy that helps the person understand that sodium isn't bad when you factor in the benefits of other benefits. This is just me speculating. I don't know if that's the right explanation, but that's what the team would have to figure out. Another question the person might have is it okay if I had this just once a day? Because there's a lot of emphasis on their product page on showing multiple times in a day. And what happens if I have it once? Do I get some benefits? And I think there's an opportunity there for us to explain that. The next one is I already have a food routine. I hate the idea of creating a new one. This is a really important one because we're asking people to effectively alter their lifestyles. We're not saying it's a major shift, but it is still a shift. And people always default to their their old habits. Now, I want to mention something here, which is the thing is that the copywriter, as a copywriter, I know that this is a BS or bullshit question because the user is already on the page, which means that the user already recognizes that a change needs to be made in their lifestyle. But here's the thing though, that does not mean that the user doesn't expect to be satisfactorily given a good explanation for that. So what I need to do is I need to understand that the user is absolutely willing to make that change. So I don't have to explain to them the important context of that, but I need to give them reinforcing arguments like for why to buy this product. And so the way you would do that is the first thing to do is to reflect back on their current situation. So you can draw, again, it's all about empathy. And then you want to help them see the benefit of this new lifestyle so they can visualize it. And that'll give them the motivation to move forward. And then the final negative thought is that it's prices, as Lorenzo has mentioned before, price is always a hot topic. So it's not expensive to try just once because it's just $7. But the thing is that the question is that, okay, if it becomes a routine, if that's the goal, then it does become pretty expensive. I'm willing to invest to make it, I'm willing to make the investment if it really helps, but does it really help? And so I think there's an opportunity here for the copywriter to address this in some specific way. These are just some of the questions I thought about. I think you can think about different questions. Tomorrow morning, if I worked on the same thing, I would come up with a different set of questions. So it's just, it's something just worth thinking about, but those are some of the questions I would address. And that is my idea.
Cool. Very, very, very compelling, Rishi. Cool. I'll briefly talk about my last, it's not really an idea.
Do you want me to scroll down to it?
No. Don't share that document. So I want to talk about a process. So, at the beginning of the show, we spoke about how, our main hypothesis is that Kettle on Fire wants to focus on subscription. And probably their goal is to increase subscription customers. So I want to talk a little bit about, literally like 5 minutes only, about a process that I would go through with two goals in mind. The first one, increase the subscription customers. And the second one, reduce the cancellations. So reduce the number of people that churn and stop buying the subscription option. And this process can be broken down in 4 different kind of like methodologies that I would use in order to figure that out. The first one is a post-purchase survey to both one-time buyers and subscription buyers. And in particular, this will give me some insights about the difference between the two buyers. In particular, I want to understand a little bit more about the first-time buyers who chose the subscription right away without having tried any product from Kettle and Fire in the past. Because what happens is that if you think about it in general, like, you know, taking out your credit card is already a friction point, right? You have to take the person from A to B, and the mountain is quite high. Now, what this group of people have done is not only they've taken out the credit card to buy once, but they've taken out
committed to, yeah,
exactly. They've taken out the credit card to buy on a long term. On a long term, because they're subscription customers. And I want to understand what compelling reasons they have, or we have given them, in order to have that behavior, in order to buy on a subscription. Then I want to understand why the one-time buyers, so those people that have picked the one-time subscription, didn't choose the subscription option. And that will give me a bunch of kind of like reasons, right? Compelling reasons and sort of like objections that people had to go from one-time and subscription.
And I want to just add, I want to add something here, because I think this is, so when I say that I don't like user research, I don't like the user research that is outside of what Lorenzo is talking about. So what he's talking about is of great interest to me. This is of great interest to me, because I think like when you think about it, those really surgical terms, like I want to understand the mindset of people that came to the website, have never bought Kettle and Fire, and just jumped into subscription. That's a really important thing to understand, because that's a really powerful gold mine. So I love that kind of user research. So I just think this is incredible. I think the ability to identify what are the kinds of questions that you want to solve for is a superpower, and Lorenzo absolutely has that. So please proceed.
Oh, thank you, buddy. I'm super flattered about what you just said. Cool. So the second thing that as I mentioned, that I would want to do is why the one-time buyers didn't pick the subscription. And, you know, I have a lot of hypotheses. I've come across a lot of different reasons throughout the years. But to me, all those reasons are going to be a gold mine, because now I know all the objections that people have, and I can use those objections as a point of strength to better sell, you know, people to go on a subscription. The last kind of like sort of survey that I would do is I would want to survey the people that have bought the product with the one-time option. And then sometimes after, they've gone from one-time to subscription, right? So I bought the bone broth the first time, maybe I have it a second time, and then I decided to switch from one-time purchase to subscription. And again, here the goal is to get additional benefits and advantages that I might not even like looking at or thinking about, that I should be promoting in my email communication, for example, whenever I pitch the subscription option to first-time buyers, maybe after a few weeks that they've bought. And a lot of these surveys, by the way, Rishi, you obviously know this, but a lot of these surveys can be sent out simply through whatever email marketing tool you have in, half a day of work. You can use Klaviyo. Klaviyo is amazing for this kind of emails because it's all about triggers and behavior and segments of people that have made specific sort of like actions. MailChimp is also pretty good. So again, coming up with these questions and creating the email copy for the survey and setting that up in your email marketing tool, it's probably like half a day of work. So something that there's no excuse for not doing. The other three activities that I would totally focus on, again, the goal, let's remember about the goal. Increase the subscription and lower churn, lower the number of people that cancel. The second one is do a subscription cancellation data analysis. So what I would do is I would actually create a funnel into my Google Analytics for the people that have gone through the cancellation process. And what the cancellation process is, the way to think about it is like a funnel. Users have come on the website and have gone through a funnel in order to buy. So that maybe they've come in from like a home page, then they've gone to like a category page, then product page, cart, and checkout. And it's good that companies create a funnel to understand where the major drop-offs in the funnel are. So what I'm suggesting is that there is also a cancellation funnel for the people that have been subscribers and have gone inside the members area and have gone ahead and canceled. So I would want to understand from a quantitative perspective what that funnel looks like and where the major drop-offs are. So for example, classical funnel that a lot of subscription-focused businesses have is click on cancel, and then the brand is giving like a bunch of reasons for canceling. Reason number one, reason number 2, 3, and so on. The user picks the different kind of reasons for canceling, and usually there's always like a sort of like a pitch. Let's say, oh, I'm canceling for X reason. Usually there's a pitch that hopefully persuades you to go back to your kind of like, okay, now you convinced me, I'm not going to cancel anymore, right? So what I would want to do is literally like outline and understand that funnel at the reason for canceling level. So now we know how many people have clicked on reason number 1. And if my pitch to persuade them to not canceling has worked or not, and which one of the pitches has worked the best. The other thing is, if you're not collecting the reasons why your customers are canceling, I definitely recommend you to do so, to go ahead and set that up, because these are like super juicy insights that you want to collect to understand what kind of actions you need to take in order to lower that churn. The other thing I would do, again, in terms of like cancellation data analysis, I would definitely send out a survey to all those people that have canceled to understand a little bit more around their experience, the reasons for canceling, and the difference between what they, like the reason why they purchased originally your product for and what happened when they tried it. 2 more things I would do. The third one is customer support tickets analysis. So oftentimes, and again, this is me speculating based on my experience, but oftentimes people reach out to customer support because they want to cancel their subscription. So I would want to understand more about those reasons for canceling by just reading through the customer support tickets And one thing that I highly recommend is even to understand how your customer support agents are convincing or not convincing, how easy or difficult they're making it for a customer to actually canceling. So for example, if Rishi, reaches out to me and I'm the agent, and Rishi says, hi, I just want to cancel my order. And Lorenzo goes ahead and says, okay, let me cancel it for you. This is exactly the exact response that Lorenzo would give. There's room for improvement because Lorenzo is not really doing a good job at understanding why Rishi is canceling. And those reasons for canceling are gold mine for the business Lorenzo works for. So don't make it like super, super, super easy for Rishi to cancel, but also obviously be ashamed if you're making it extremely difficult to cancel. Still about this customer support analysis, I would also like trigger a live chat widget in the cancellation page in the members area. Because maybe there is something going on that the user can't really understand, and it's a great opportunity for your live chat agents to come into the conversation and help out the user. Last thing I promise. Fourth is it's kind of like similar to what I said earlier around helping people choose the right product frequency and quantity. Because again, oftentimes people turn and cancel because they got so much quantities, and it's not because they haven't consumed your product, but because originally when they first bought the product, they actually selected the wrong quantity, not really the wrong quantity, but because you didn't help them select the right quantity for them based on their habits. So I would totally try to figure that out, because it's always like a good way to lower churn. Cool. I'm done with this part.
No, I think this is really good, and I would tell this. I think Lorenzo still got so much more to talk about this topic. If you want to dig deeper into these kind of survey questions or these kind of thinkings around subscription, it's his area of expertise. Post a comment. We look at all comments. He'll give you a good response. Connect with him on LinkedIn as well, and ask him these questions, because the purpose is to kind of, if you're a digger, we want to kind of give you more context. So I think this has been a really good and useful episode. Hopefully you guys have picked up. I'm positive you picked up some ideas that you had not considered before. Thank you for sticking around, and we will see you with another big DTC brand shortly.
Big. Ciao.
Ciao.